your new Michigan Republican Party chairman, former Congressman Pete Hoekstra. I actually recommended. I said, do you think you could ever get this guy Hoekstra? He's unbelievable. And you were willing to do it, and I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it. We're going to win the state. If we win Michigan, we win the election. You know? Thank you, Pete. Great. Got the best man. I said that. I said, can you get Hoekstra? He was incredible. Everything he did in Congress, he was incredible. And then he was an unbelievable ambassador. Everybody thought he was just about the best. And then I just said, you got to get that guy. And he agreed to do it. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, there it is, guys. Welcome, everyone, to the Rescue Michigan Weekly live stream. It's been ages, 5 days, I think, since I've gone live. But
that's a record lately, huh?
It's there's been a lot going on lately. But welcome, everybody. Our guests tonight, Daniel Lawless, Patty P, and Matt Wilk, who, of course, have all becoming increasingly regular guests on the show. First off, a little bit of housekeeping, because some of you might be wondering, what in the world was that music we were listening to for the 1 minute while we got queued in? You see, folks, there is a very, very touchy world of copyright on the internet, especially on YouTube. And remember last week we had, because there was a bit of a Wizard of Oz meme theme going on with our little thumbnail with Kristina Karamo. I actually found a very obscure cover of some Wizard of Oz music thinking, oh, this will be okay. And nope. Well, it was okay enough, but YouTube was like, we know that was a copyrighted material. Like, they didn't tag me for it and penalize me for it, but they definitely knew who it was. So no matter how obscure it was, it looks like the only thing we can use for music on this channel on YouTube is the world of video game music, because there's so many, there's so many people that stream video games that they basically just ignore the copyrights on it. So that's the world we're limited to. And I only even talk about this because I know for some people, hey, that sounded fine. And there's some people for whom a synthesizer is like nails on a chalkboard. And that was just agony to sit through for one whole minute. So unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in, but it's either that or just sit in silence, and that's not good either. So welcome everyone to the stream. It's been a crazy week. We got a lot to talk about, starting with that Trump rally. Did you guys all go to the rally? I did not. I've been to a few. I didn't. You're all nodding. Okay, so how was it? I remember the last one I went to was a lot of waiting in a very warm place that was a little crowded. But how was it? Go ahead. Who wants to start? I don't even know.
I went. I took my 8-year-old son. It was cold on the walk to the venue, but we got right in, and it was nice and toasty inside until they opened up the big doors. And even then, it wasn't that cold. It was cold, but not miserably cold. So he had a great time, and for me, that was what it was all about. Was taking my son to his first rally and seeing him experience it.
Yeah. We've got some live chats to read. In fact, there was some that even came in before we started that I almost want to get to right away. Although, now that this individual on YouTube has spoken up, someone called Stefan Kinsella over this copywriting conundrum. Let me go on the record and say Stefan Kinsella has no clue how copyright law and intellectual property law should work. But that's a topic for another night, I think. The ins and outs of libertarian copyright theory, but never mind that for right now.
I would say, Adam, I would say one thing about the rally that was really cool was he had somehow found and tapped on the shoulder some auto worker. And this guy was a phenomenal speaker. And
that was so cool. Yeah.
Right from the heart. And then later,
if you guys don't know, Right Side Broadcasting Network, you can Google it. They broadcast every single Trump rally, so you can watch this if you want. It's easy to find. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, he was great, and he was speaking totally from the heart, and it's a big part of his message, right? The open borders leads to problems for auto workers. That's been true for a long time, and then he taps him on the shoulder again. Who's that guy? All the muscles. Come on up here.
He had a man crush on this guy for sure. He couldn't stop talking about his physique. So
and he took off his jacket, took off his whatever overcoat, and there it was, auto workers for Trump. So
and he knew how to work the crowd too. The auto worker did. Like he was great.
If I'm Sean Fain.
Brian Pannebacker, was it really? Was that Brian Pannebacker? I've heard that name before.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, I don't know his
That's
name.
funny. I think Panabacker was either an old Right to Work guy or an old Ron Paul guy. I definitely know the name from somewhere. Who else do we have on the live chats? There's some back and forth going on in the chats. In fact, I saw this comment on Rumble before we even went live. And this is in response, I think, to the video description. And this kind of, I think, gets to the first topic, which is talking about this whole Kristina Karamo stuff. Because clearly Trump said, Pete Hoekstra's my guy. I mean, he laid it out. It was unambiguous. And I remember when he put out a statement on Truth Social, someone contacted me and says, I don't believe Trump really wrote that. I don't believe Trump really thinks this. I think it's just his handlers saying this stuff. And Trump was like, it was my idea to pick Hoekstra. I mean, he was absolutely unequivocal about the entire thing. Anyway, so on Rumble in the comments, May I 18 says, so why am I a delegate then? My vote's stolen again. It means nothing. And we've kind of been through this a few times, but I'm going to keep going through it.
Mm-hmm.
First off, just because you're a precinct delegate does not make, because I always hear these people say the same thing. They always say the precinct delegates elected Kristina Karamo. And they usually say this in the context of the RNC can't decide, President Trump can't decide, the state committee members can't decide, the precinct delegates elected Kristina Karamo, which first off, they actually didn't. The state committee members did. The precinct delegates delegated that task to the state delegates. Eventually in the third ballot, they voted for Kristina Karamo. They also voted for the state committee members themselves, who, following their bylaws, properly removed her, which is the other big story this week, which was the RNC's final decision came out, which prior to this, when we were asking, when do you think this is going to come out? Everyone was saying it was supposed to come out last week. People are saying it might come out this Friday, might be next Friday, might be 2 weeks from now. Nobody knew. And then suddenly, kablam, it just came out. I want to say Tuesday, this past Tuesday. Is that right? But I want to read through it because it's such a great analysis. It's only 8 or 9 pages, 8 pages mostly, a little bit over. But it goes through all of the arguments. It goes through all the things that Kristina Karamo supporters have said. It's a really nice kind of encapsulation of everything. Let's make this bigger here so you guys can see it on the screen. As unanimously approved and adopted by the Republican National Committee. And this is written on every page. It's so great. Republican National Committee, Temporary Committee on RNC Membership Disputes Report and Recommendation for Resolution, which, for those who don't know, does not mean this committee is not valid. It means the RNC created a committee to look into this, to write a report and a recommendation, which they did. That's this document, which was then unanimously approved and adopted by the Republican National Committee. Unanimous. All 167, because Kristina Karamo was not a member. Members approved this document. In re dispute regarding the chairmanship of the Michigan Republican Party, Hoekstra v. Karamo. The following constitutes the report and recommendation for resolution of the RNC Temporary Committee regarding the dispute arising out of competing claims, yada, yada, yada. Jurisdiction, we are the RNC. We have the authority to determine who our own members are. Effectively is what that says. And is this footnote important? No, not really. Just understanding the fundamental nature of a membership organization to express its will through the assembly of its members and to retain control over its own affairs. And then we have
an important concept.
The
Michigan Republic, the national, the RNC gets to decide who is a member of the RNC. Should be pretty fundamental, but maybe not. Yeah.
Dwayne Zantop says, I know Brian Panabacker. He was a Ford worker. Yes, he took a big part in Right to Work. There you go. Facts. Kristina Karamo was elected chair of the MIGOP on February 18th, 2023, which, if I'm not mistaken, is exactly 1 year ago from tonight. So,
happy anniversary.
Oh, dear.
The MIGOP bylaws provide that the chairman shall call a special meeting upon written request by at least 1/3 of the members of the state committee. On December 2nd, a member of the state committee, Bree Mogenberg, sent Chairwoman Karamo a petition for a special meeting bearing the signatures of 39 committee members. with the agenda for the special meeting, including potential removal of Chairwoman Karamo. On December 5th, she responded that the petition was invalid and stated that she would not call the requested special meeting. Following her response on December 16th, Chairwoman Karamo issued a call for a different special meeting to take place on January 13th, which did not include her and other officers' potential removal as an item of business. On December 31st, Ms. Mogenberg called a special meeting for January 6th, 2024, for the original demanded purpose of voting to remove multiple officers. A petition bearing the signatures of 54 state committee members in favor of a vote to remove Chairman Karamo as required by Article 4 of the bylaws was submitted to the secretary at 1:49 p.m. by Matt DePerno and 2:05 p.m. by Margaret Kurzweil. The special meeting was called to order at 1:59 p.m. At the time of the January 6th meeting, there were 106 members of the state committee. 71 members, including 45 in person and 26 by proxy, attended the January 6th meeting. Following procedural motions, the table orders of the day, and the adoption of amendments to the bylaws, the members present at the special meeting voted to remove Kristina Karamo as chairman of the MIGOP. The vote was held by secret ballot, and only those members present, not by proxy, participated in the vote. The motion received 40 votes in favor and 5 against, resulting in the motion carrying with more than 88% support. Other officers were similarly removed following their votes. Following the January 6th meeting, State Committee Vice Chairman, they mean co-chair, assumed the duties of acting chairman and in that capacity called for a meeting on January 20th, 2024 to elect a new chairman. At that meeting, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra was elected chairman. As unanimously adopted and approved by the RNC, Ms. Karamo maintains that the January 6th meeting was not properly called, the quorum requirement was not met, the petition required to remove her as an officer had material defects, and that therefore she is still chairman of the MIGOP. This is, again, this is such a nice summary of the issues at hand. This matter turns on 4 questions. Was the January 6th meeting properly called? Whether the petition requesting a vote to remove Karamo was properly filed? Whether a quorum existed when the vote to remove Karamo occurred? And whether there was vote sufficient to remove her. So they go through each of these. Was the January 6th meeting properly called? Yes. The bylaws state that chairman shall call a special meeting on written request of 1/3 of the members of the committee within 15 days, and upon failure to do so, any such member can give notice 5 days before such meeting. In addition, notices of special meetings shall state the purpose of such meetings. On December 2nd, Bree Mogenberg sent Karamo an email with a subject special meeting request, which included an attached written request for special meeting that was signed by 36 members,
39 members.
More than the required 1/3. That request included a time, date, location, and further stated the agenda would include transparency, accountability, unity, proposed bylaw amendment, review, and possible removal of Kristina Karamo, Dan Hartman, Robert Owens, and Jim Kopis. On December 5th, Karamo rejected the request for a special meeting via email. In doing so, she stated there were individuals requesting the special meeting assert 4 claims of authority which violate the bylaws and therefore invalidate their entire request. And that is cited to, was a footnote that says specifically, she argued 1, that only she had the authority to set the date and time of the meeting. 2, that individuals could not determine who chairs the meeting. 3, that the individuals could not put a bylaw amendments on the agenda without first submitting to the policy committee. 4, that they could not call a special meeting to remove any member if the requirement to remove the member has been satisfied, with they've yet to do. And 5, that the requesters are functionally attempting to use the bylaw provision for a special meeting and turn it into a trial by asserting claims of authority that the bylaws do not afford them. That was what Karamo's experts argued.
Well, and you can stop right there for a second.
Yes.
So, a lot of precinct delegates who at one time supported Kristina Karamo have said, where is she getting this nonsense from? There are 2 members of her inner circle, one who is an attorney, barely, and one who is not an attorney. And this is clearly an attempt by these people to make legal proclamations that they are, number 1, are not accurate, and number 2, they have no business making. So this is somebody who said, if you call a special meeting and there's something wrong with your call to special meeting, it invalidates the entire thing. That's not true. And no judge would believe that. And in this case, the very seasoned counsel for the RNC in a previous letter said they didn't believe it either.
Yeah. So here's what the RNC says. In our view, Chairman Karamo had no authority under the bylaws to reject the special meeting request as invalid, nor does her subsequent scheduling of a separate special meeting with different agenda items render the request null and void, as she asserted. Once Karamo received the request signed by 1/3 of the committee, it was her duty to call the special meeting, after which time any such member could call the meeting because she failed to do so. Although she subsequently did call a special meeting for the 13th, the notice indicated it was being held to address other items than those requested, so therefore wouldn't count. Once Karamo failed to call the special meeting that was requested, any one of the requesters had the authority to call the meeting themselves. State Committee Woman Mogan Briggs called the special meeting issued to all members of the State Committee via email on December 31st for the January 6th meeting, provided sufficient notice of the time, place, and nature of business to be conducted, and therefore was properly issued. Footnote: notices may be sent by any reasonable means, which specifically includes electronic mail, per the bylaws, Article 6. So she emailed it. Question 2, was the petition requesting a vote on removing Chairman Karamo properly filed? Yes. Do you guys want me to read through this whole thing? I kind of feel like I don't need to. I feel like we've been through this a million times before already.
Well, the important part to note is that this is another audience that has done the analysis of the issues that the crack, air quotes, legal team of the administration has put together. This is their best set of arguments, and all of them fall flat on their face. And people have said it. It not only lack legal merit, they lack any sort of common sense. Common sense says that if you ask for a special meeting to talk about the removal of Kristina, they can't then call a special meeting and say, well, we're not going to talk about the removal of Kristina because that negates the entire provision. Anybody with any sort of common sense gets that. I mean, so this is just a reiteration of that, like just common sense. Yeah. None of the stuff they said makes any sense whatsoever.
Right. So, and just to skim over a few of these things here. So like it says, the signed petition submitted on January 6th at 1:49. The meeting minutes show started at 1:59. We see nothing in Robert's rules or the bylaws to require they go out an earlier time. Some people claim that wasn't my signature. There is no signature verification process required. Accordingly, we conclude the signatures were timely submitted as required by the bylaws. They argue at least some of the signatures were invalid because allegedly they were collected with respect to the December 27th meeting, the original date. However, the petitions themselves are not dated. Nothing to suggest that valid signed petitions must be used for one particular meeting or else expire.
Those were two big arguments they tried to make. They tried to say you needed to give them the signatures in advance so they would be verified by the secretary. Untrue.
Yeah.
You can't. You called it for one meeting. You can't use it for another. Untrue. And how many times do you have to go through this to convince someone? I don't know. Good question.
I don't think they're going to be convinced no matter how many times we go through it, but for the purpose of the impartial audience, I mean, just to go quickly over these, like Kristina's people say the petition had not enough signatures because 3 people subsequently withdrew their signatures on January 6th after the vote took place. That does not change the fact there were valid signatures prior to the time the vote took place. Was there a quorum? And again, this is stuff that's so clear in the bylaws. They claim the proxies weren't valid because their forms weren't submitted in advance, which they suggest is required. And they nope, it's not. They say the quorum was 75%, not 50%. That's wrong too. And they go through all of this. It's thoroughly done. We disagree that 75% quorum is required. The bylaw requires a majority of the total membership, except where the action of the committee require a larger number of members, which is explicitly set forth, which is not here.
But Adam, stop right there for a second.
Yeah.
The PSC report was the policy state committee. It's their own report. Their own report takes the proper portion of bylaws and reads it and comes to this insane interpretation that when you have a quorum to establish a meeting, right, which you need to have, that magically, if you choose to pick something that requires a bigger percentage, then the quorum amount goes up. And then if you're not at quorum for that amount, it's now not 50% anymore. It's a larger number, which is no one believes. It's insane. And it didn't stop these people from saying it. And it doesn't stop a lot of people from parroting it.
Well, Matt, they went even farther than that. And they said that the proxies couldn't even count towards that because only members could vote. So not only did you need 75% attendance, it had to be 75% of just members. Right. Which is not what it says anywhere in the bylaws.
It specifically says the opposite in the bylaws.
Right.
And by the way, since we're almost through this already, I would point out, this is not written to say, and because we're the globalists who don't like Kristina Karamo, this is why we agree with Pete Hoekstra. It's also not written in complicated legalisms. It's very plain English. The PSC record argues a quorum would only exist where 75% of members were both present and voted in favor. This is simply wrong. You read the exception as applying where the bylaws expressly provide for a higher quorum threshold, not a higher voting threshold. The article says, where's the quorum present? At 75% of the vote of the committee. That does not mean that 75% would be needed, because if the requirement referred to the quorum threshold, then the language, provided there's a quorum present, would be redundant. The plain reading is that the quorum threshold is separate and distinct from the voting requirement, and absent clear language to the contrary, this quorum must refer to the majority threshold. So the last question was, having established a quorum, were there sufficient votes to remove her? Yep. Yes, there were, because the ones present and voting. And again, this is semantics we've been over and over and over, but it's very clear. Proxies may be used to establish a quorum. Only those members present are relevant for the purpose of deciding how many votes are required to remove an officer. 75% of those present.
Well, some of the press started catching on to this and this past week and started talking about what a tactical error to tell your people not to show up and vote on your behalf.
Well,
and that's really what this came down to, is just she didn't understand the bylaws, and if she did, she could have had her people there and she probably would have held on to her job, but she didn't, and that's where we are.
Yep. Well, that's the way that goes. All right, let me read some chats here.
I'd like to speak out that Brian joined the chat.
That's what I said. I thought I saw Brian's name pop up
Brian
in the
Panic
chat.
Joined the chat. So
cool. Brian's in the chat.
Yesterday, you and your muscles.
Brian, if you want, do you have contact info for Dan Lawless or Matt Wilk or Patty? If anyone can email Brian the link to the stream. In fact, let me see if I've got his email. I might, but I probably don't, because no, I don't. I was going to say, feel free to pass on the link if he wants to join us in the panel here. That'd be lovely. On Rumble, Sailor Sam says, I would like you to read the entire document. I haven't seen a copy or note where I can download the reply. Sam, it sounds like people don't want me to read through this word for word, but you can just replay the video at a future time and just pause it, because I did scroll fairly slowly through each of the pages, and that's the entire thing. So you can still read it on your own time. And I'll probably at some point, I'll put a link in the description, I'll say, for the video. It'll be after tonight. I'll post a link to the description, or a link in the description to the full opinion, so you can read it there.
It's a very simply written document. It's very cut and dried. And what the key is that it's written presumably by lawyers. They wrote this, they have a very competent one who actually might, I read somewhere, was actually Trump's pick to be the RNC chair. I think he's Mike Watley or Mark Watley.
Yeah, Watley from North Carolina.
Great. He's this great, smart dude. But it was very, very simple. And the problem that people have is they have been told otherwise. They have been told there's this magical thing that did or did not occur, and they snap their fingers and then they'll get the result they want. And that's just not the case.
Yep. On Facebook, Mark writes, new people would not want to be active in the GOP because of a mess like this. Yeah,
neither do old people.
That's the
I mean, neither do the old people. I mean,
exactly.
What I've heard, conventions across this whole state, numbers were way down. People are fed up and tired of all the fighting and
they're disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, that's the point, folks. That's the entire point. There's actually there's another great new article about this on Scott McMahon's website. I'm going to put this up on the screen right now. If you haven't seen this, biggertruthmedia.com, they got a new story out about how all the people in Kristina's orbit are not the slightest bit Republicans. They all have these crazy, insane histories, from Kopis to Robert Owens to Ken Byer to Mike Labadie, and he goes through a lot of these people in this article. So you can check that out, biggertruthmedia.com. I'm not going to read this word for word. Dan Bonham, who apparently is now the state. They had another LARPing meeting recently where they made Bonham like the what is he now, the co-chair or something?
Yes. Yep. They made him the co-chair in their world.
Cool.
They
We
also
talked about
suspended the
Robert
bylaws.
Owens.
So
I think either last Sunday night stream or some stream around that we did. I talked for a good bit about Robert Morris Owens, and yeah, folks, if you can understand, the agenda is to drive people away from the GOP. This all makes sense. Like, it's not just a simple power struggle. It's a power struggle where the goal is to burn everything down. And apparently they had a meeting the other day where they have now voted to pay Kristina again. So even though they've raised no money this year, we had last weekend, our whole stream was about how they lost $40,000 over the course of the past year. Now they're looting the federal account to pay Kristina again. Like, the whole idea is bankrupt the party.
Well,
Bankrupt the party.
And something that Dan said that they have repeated often is, well, we're just going to suspend the bylaws. But it's not, and we heard that in our convention. We heard somebody say, we're just going to we can suspend the bylaws. Organizations have rules, and they're rules crafted for a reason, to keep everybody organized and enthused and set guidelines. And you can't do that. You can't just suspend the rules. The Tigers and the Angels can't go into a baseball game and say, today it's 5 balls and 3 strikes. You cannot do that. And
yeah,
but there are people around this circle that say,
Well,
it's tab too, man.
oh yeah, I got it. It's great. It's 25-7. If anyone has their Robert's rules contained in the bylaws cannot be suspended, no matter how large the vote in favor of doing so, or how inconvenient the rule in question may be.
oh my God.
So it's right there. Yeah, it might be inconvenient. You might have a unanimous vote. You still can't do it.
Well, that's the point. I mean, weren't we all a little bit ticked off when the Constitution was suspended during COVID lockdowns?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, and that's what
So,
it is.
I mean, the hypocrisy is just beyond words. Like, just enough.
Hey, shout outs to you, Patty, from Dwayne Zantop.
Thanks.
Knocked
Dwayne.
it out of the park in your in your convention.
Yeah, we
we'll talk about the convention in a second. Well, real quick, since I just brought up that article, I do want to touch on this because talking about the crooks in Kristina's orbit, because apparently I've been notified once again that Randy Bishop has called me a white supremacist on his show and said I'm some kind of grand wizard KKK person. And people are sending me these statements so that they always preface this by saying, you should really sue Randy Bishop for defamation. And the thing you guys got to understand, folks, is defamation's a really hard thing to prove. You have to just calling someone a racist is not enough to sue him for defamation. You have to show damages unless it's defamation per se. And that's like what happens when you just call somebody a flat out felon. For example, if I were to say trucker Randy Bishop is a felon, he has multiple felony convictions for being a fraud, that would be defamation per se, unless there's a defense to it, which is that they're true, which, you know.
Yes, it has to be factual.
Yeah. So like in this article where Bridge, Michigan says Randy Bishop, who has 2 felony fraud convictions, is now battling a separate disturbing the fees charge in Northern Michigan, denied he is running as a Democrat solely to influence the Republican primary. So this would be defamation by Bridge, Michigan, except that apparently it's true. Otherwise, Randy could sue Bridge, Michigan. So, but I don't have that claim because just calling me a Nazi, I mean, it's a little offensive to me, you know, because I'm alive on this world because my grandmother and her sister fled Hungary in time. The rest of their family got burned in the ovens. So you got some fucking nerve, Randy, calling me a white supremacist, you piece of shit. But I can't sue you. So go ahead, moron. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. We were talking about the conventions. So we've got a clip here. We've got a clip. Here's
Oakland County.
Yeah, from Oakland County. From Oakland County. How'd you guess? Dan? Let's play the clip here, shall we? Hold on, I gotta set this up here. Presenting.
Do you want me to tell people what this is?
Sure. Why don't you tell people what this is?
So just so people know, in Oakland County, we have 6 congressional districts that touch us. So we divide ourselves into different rooms. So this room that we're looking at here is the 9th district. That's the 2nd largest district in Oakland County. And they are trying to get their delegates sorted out to go to their district caucuses. And they got interrupted.
So here we go. Here's the clip. Can you hear it?
No audio.
No volume.
No audio? Okay, let me try this another way. Hold on. I think I've cracked the code on this, and I think I just forgot that it has to be done full screen. Let's try this again. Audio?
Some, you can turn it up.
It's all the way up. All right, guys, I can't turn it up.
You can give a play-by.
It's a lot of screaming and yelling is what it is, out of order.
Yeah, everyone's calling that well, not everyone, but a fair amount are calling that she's out of order. Kristina shows up to the 9th district. She's not a delegate there. She has no business being there. Even if she was the chair, there's no reason for her to go up and give a speech to the 9th district. They're trying to elect their delegates. That's just interrupting their business, and no one was having it. And so they shouted her down and booed her out of the room. And then she went over to the 11th district where she is a delegate and proceeded to get no votes in her sub-caucus. So she will not be going to district caucuses.
Yeah. Mark Kerniel says Rocky Rakowski was upset with the low turnout at the OCRP and the strong support for KK. Well, I'd be disappointed. I'd be upset if there's any support for KK at any convention, frankly, but it's
That's
the
not
way
good.
it goes, folks.
Yeah, and Rocky is a realist. Rocky and Vance and the other chairs of all understand how much of a headwind Kristina Karamo creates.
Yeah. Just to read a few comments on Rumble, because I've been Rumble. And I'm looking up and away like this. It's because Rumble's on another screen. Hurlbag says some folks can't get it through their heads that it's a performance issue. KK wasn't getting the job done, and that job is to get Republicans elected, and that requires plenty of dollars. Dennis Marburger. By the way, Dennis, I will come back with you about Stephen Kinsella someday. What do the bylaws say about replacing an ousted chair officer? Asks E. Clark 3. The bylaws say that the chair has to be replaced at the next meeting. Is what that says. Correct?
Yeah, they may not be reappointed during the term from which they were removed.
There you go. Daniel Acacia says Macomb Convention was a mess too, especially the 10th District Caucus. Okay.
They had a really late night.
I'm sure they did. My county had a very, very, very late night too.
Yeah.
The KK people agitated against using the system that I created to make it so that we could just count the votes immediately, because of course it's part of the whole narrative crafting stuff. So they were there till 1 a.m. counting ballots. Complete mess. We had, in my county, we had 90 people. We had 130 people voting on 90 candidates for 43 seats. So that meant we had to count more than 5,600 ballots by paper, which I'm sure was done up and up by the books, because
No mistakes.
when Joseph Stalin said those who cast the votes decide nothing, those who count the votes decide everything, he was talking about online internet voting, wasn't he? Yeah, Macomb adjourned at about 1:15 a.m.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We were done at 9:30.
Yeah. Good for
And
you.
that's actually, it should have been faster, but we literally could have been out of there by 8:45 had we.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some other stuff, because we've done a lot of streams about KK for a very long time now. Some other things have happened in the world, including the big story this week was this Trump verdict, and now also sentence. Trump was forced to pay, what was it, like $400 million, some completely ludicrous amount of money, for a case in which they couldn't really show any evidence that he'd done anything wrong. They had no evidence of anybody being harmed by it, and this somehow entitled this judge to award $300-some million in damages. What Jonathan Turley, who is usually very circumspect about his legal analyses, called obscene, said it will shock the conscience of a judge on appeal, said it was everything other than literally throwing Trump in a wood chipper.
Well, they claim that Trump defrauded this bank, and the bank actually testified that they weren't defrauded.
Yeah.
The victim testified on Trump's behalf in this case. It's so backwards.
Yeah.
Like, it's just absurd.
Okay. I mean, Adam, I did this professionally for about 5 years. Okay. During the Great Recession. And, financial statements are often a matter of opinion. What's your business worth? What's your house worth? What's your office building worth? And one of the rules, and it's been very strict and it's been around for a long time, is when you are a bank, if you are paid as agreed, you are by definition not defrauded. Okay, because you have signed a piece of paper that says, pay me back $100,000 with 3% interest by this period of time. And if you get everything back, you can't have been defrauded. There is no loss. That's been true for a very, very long time across the entire country. Now, this judge says, I don't care. Okay, now you got to remember, in New York, the terms they use, this is an entry level judge. So think about some of the judges we have here in Wayne County, and they're elected, not appointed. They run unopposed in the Democratic primary effectively, and sometimes they have no particular expertise. In this case, this was not in the commercial division, because the judge in the commercial division would know.
Real quick, man, if I can just interject something, because people looking up the case probably don't know this. New York is very, very weird in that they call their trial courts the Supreme Court.
Correct.
And the Court of Appeals is their appellate court, which is totally counterintuitive and weird and bizarre, but that's the way they do it. So he's not a Supreme Court judge. He is a ordinary judge.
Ordinary local judge. By the way, not in the commercial division. Because what this judge has done, if this is not overturned in an appeal, and this will be the primary look in the appeal, is if you change that rule for America's financial capital, you have a real problem. Because anybody who borrows money and pays it back, this judge is saying you can go back in time and say, well, you lied about this, so pay me money. It is insane. And there was a similar case in Michigan some years ago where a judge up north had issued a ruling, and it would completely have eviscerated commercial lending in Michigan. And the legislature had to step in and reverse the rule, because the judge he didn't like the party, didn't like the other party, stretches to make a ruling, and all the other people on the sidelines say, oh my God, you can't possibly mean that. And they did. And the legislature had to come in and go, no, we don't want this. Because what they don't want is every time you do a credit default swap in New York, and they say, well, did you disclose everything? Because if you didn't, we're going to track you down years later, even though you've been paid, and go after you. It's ridiculous. It's never been done. And when Trump says it's a complete travesty of justice, he's 100% right here.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, here's a story where Kathy Hochul has to tell businesses, don't worry about this decision because we were only just doing it to get Trump. That's what she effectively said.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's what that was the whole case, because she knows what a disaster this is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
If you think that every New Yorker making a deal on a commercial matter is completely honest to you, please don't go to New York, because you're going to get ripped off. It's just not what they do there.
And her assurances notwithstanding, any business owner is going to look at this and go, clearly these courts are utterly politicized, they're utterly corrupt, and I could be a target for any reason that I can't imagine. Because if they could do it to Trump, they can do it to anybody.
You're gonna have people in large commercial transactions say, I want to make sure that the law that affects my deal is London or Berlin or Vienna or somewhere else, but not New York City, because I can't be subject to a clawback if a loan paid as agreed is somehow you found that some point in the past I exaggerated the size of a piece of real estate. Come on. Yeah,
it's crazy. The other thing that's coming up now that we've gotten some of this party business behind us, is there's an actual presidential primary election coming up, which I know that most of our national delegates are going to be awarded by the district conventions, which I may have had something to do with, In fact, I just looked up February 6th of last year, more than a full year ago. It was literally like the day after Democrats passed this bill to move the primary up. And I said, kill it. Just get our delegates through at a convention so we don't have to deal with this and get our delegates back. And
so a question though, this penalty that allegedly people were saying we would incur, that's only for this year, right?
yes.
So in 2028, we don't have to do this caucus stuff.
Well, we might if the
Yeah.
Democrats don't move the date back to where it had been.
Why would we keep continually being penalized in perpetuity for this, not just one time?
The way it works is that because of the time frame, the RNC can't change its rules for this year. They can change the rules for the next time where we wouldn't get penalized, but that doesn't mean they will change the rules. That just means they can.
Yeah, I mean,
This
the
year
problem
they couldn't change the rules.
The Democrats in power moved the date super early
Right.
for the purpose of screwing us out of our national delegates. And the RNC says we're not going to let the Democrat Party in Michigan control our primary schedule. So that's why we're here where we are. So this could happen again, but as it is, I mean, as I see it,
Well, we went back
clearly
to
from the result of the polls, Trump is the winner by far. The
went
issue
back
that we
to
face
law
in the primary
this year.
is
We went back to Senate in 26. We can change that law.
Yeah, if
Well,
we
yeah,
win,
you
if
have
we
to go
win
back to
back,
House
you
and
can.
Senate.
We have a
and the
governor
governor's
that'll sign it. Yeah.
Not even
now
that.
it might be. I'd have to go back and look at the text of the bill the Democrats passed. They might have passed it for this year only, or they might not have.
If you control any house, because the rule has always been that either side picks its own days. Now, the Republicans, there was one thing they could have done that they chose not to do, which is run their own election and pay for it. This is when people say, why do we care if Kristina raises money or not? The answer is because you need to be able to do things like that. I want to say $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to do that. Pay every clerk to run your own election that you pay for. But Republicans, if they're smart, which they often haven't been, will go into the next budget hearing if there's an impasse and say, by the way, we want you to fix this. And it's really, really cheap. It only costs about $400,000. We need to have our primary on March, whatever, second, third of the next cycle. And we're not, that's hard and fast rule for us. Thank you. We will not pass your budget unless at least you give us this.
So here's a question for everybody in the chats. Type Y if you have already voted in the primary. Type N if you have not. I'm curious. How many people have cast their ballots in the presidential primary yet? I want to know.
Well, I'll tell you, Adam,
Because,
the big guy was pushing this a lot. He mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and there were signs all the way around the side saying, get out and early vote, get out and early vote. I got one person early vote.
I'm seeing a lot of N's in chat right now, guys.
Yeah.
A lot of N's. Let me tell you how I've been voting for years and years, and it's still the best way to vote. You vote in person, absentee early, because you can go to your local clerk's office. You can get the application to vote right there and then. They'll give you the ballot right there and then. You can fill it out and turn it in right there and then. You vote early, you vote absentee. You don't have to worry about something happening on election day because my earplug fell out there, or whatever you call it, headphone. I'm always working the polls on election day. I don't have time to vote on election day, but I don't want my vote going through the mail. And you don't need early voting to vote early. You just get your absentee ballot early, give it to your clerk's office, and you can get it done. I'll tell you, folks, I got my early absentee ballot from my clerk this year, and it had the wrong precinct on it.
Well,
They renumbered the precincts in my township, but my precinct still didn't change. I was in precinct 1. I'm still in precinct 1. They mailed me a ballot for precinct 2. So if you want to avoid screw-ups like that, the best way to do it is to vote early, because that way things like that can be fixed. One of the things the Democrats did this year, besides moving the primary up early, is that they passed a law to increase the precinct size from 1 to 3,000 voters to 1 to 5,000 voters. The reason they did this is because they had a bunch of precincts in Detroit where they had filled the voter rolls so heavily that they had more than 3,000 voters in a lot of them. And the funny thing is, though, that doesn't mean they had to renumber every other precinct all over the state. But like in my county, for example, tons of townships just renumbered their precincts. Like in my little township, they merged precincts 2 and 3 into 1. In Scioto Township in my county, they merged 8 precincts down into 5. So all these precincts have new numbers, which, by the way, folks, did you file to become a precinct delegate for the upcoming term?
I sent an email to our delegates a couple of weeks ago in Wayne 6, and I just said, just hold off. The deadline is not until May 7th. There's no rush. And I just wanted to confirm that whoever was going to renumber, I mean, I don't know, did they have a deadline? But that if they were going to renumber, that they're done. Because what happened 2 years ago was Canton was renumbering up until the final second, right? And all the allocations got mixed up, and it was a disaster. So I did, send it out to at least our delegates saying, please just wait. There's no rush. And we have until May 7th to fill those out and get them notarized and turned in.
Yeah. And it's similar to voting. If you want to become a precinct delegate, the best way to do that is go to your county clerk's office. They have the forms there. They will notarize it for you for free. They will tell you if you put down the wrong precinct. Usually. Well, hey, I'm in a liberal county, and mine are good about those kind of things. Maybe not everywhere, but
yeah.
Well, what Adam's talking about is really so important, and it's going to be my biggest focus this year moving forward on state committee is we need everyone to sign up to be a permanent absentee voter. They will mail you your ballot, you take it, and you turn it in, hand deliver it to your clerk's office. Don't mail it back, just hand deliver it to your clerk's office, and do that as soon as possible. So you get that ballot 6 weeks before the election. Once you turn it in, it's public record that you turned your ballot in. That means we can stop calling you. We can stop knocking your doors. We can stop sending you mailers. So we're going to save time. We're going to save money. We're going to save effort. We're going to be way more efficient with the dollars and time that we have. We're going to be able to reach those independent voters, but we need everyone to sign up to be a permanent absentee voter and get that ballot, turn it in, hand deliver it to the clerk. You don't even have to put it in a Dropbox. Take it right to the clerk and hand it to someone at the desk, and they'll put it away for you. So,
yeah. Yep. Mark Herniel says no one has too much on the plate that they can't vote in person. Paper ballots, same day voting. No. Mark, when I worked in the Detroit polls, I had to be there at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and didn't get out till 10 p.m. because you have to work the entire day when you're working the polls. If you're working on a campaign, chances are election day is going to be a crazy day for you. It's good to get it done early.
This just happened. We don't have to ask ourselves, what could happen? This just happened in New York. What happened on the New York special election on Tuesday, the 13th?
Giant snowstorm.
A giant blizzard. And therefore, if 5% of Republicans can't get through a blizzard, you get bombed in an election, right? Even Trump was saying early vote, early vote, early vote, early vote. And we have two methods of early voting now. One is the way Adam just described. Go in, get your PAV, walk in and hand it to the clerk, right? Most of us.
The other way is the early voting sites.
The other way is an early voting site. Which is, we drove by it today. It's open tomorrow. If you want to early vote, you can. Because as Adam indicated, people running campaigns will say that they now don't have to worry about calling you. Now they can call other Republicans who haven't voted yet.
Yep.
And I want to keep stressing signing up to be an absentee voter and checking the box for permanent absentee ballots. That means you get a ballot no matter what the election is. If it's a presidential year, you get the presidential ballot. If it's an off-year city council, you get it then too. So you'll get your ballots all the time. So we won't see as much of a drop in turnout between the presidential year and like that city council race. We'll turn out more Republicans more consistently, and we'll win more seats.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought this all up too is because, look, I'm pretty sure most Republicans will be voting for Donald Trump, but guess who else is voting in this primary? Democrats. That's kind of why we have this whole convention system that we worked out early, because we knew this was going to be a problem. And I can tell you, I've heard from clerks that people they know to be Democrats are getting Republican ballots left and right. So will that be okay for Trump? Sure, it will be, but Democrats have no reason not to stay out of our primary. And imagine, I mean, think of it, folks. Think of the people. I mean, if you've ever knocked on doors, if you haven't knocked on doors, no wonder you're clueless. But if you've knocked on doors, can you imagine how many people out there, the people you've seen at the polls on election day who are like, what's proposal 1? What's proposal 2?
Right.
If there is, can you think these people are going to vote on election day when they can think to themselves, oh, no, there's no reason for me to vote because Trump's going to win the primary anyway?
Okay, Adam, if you want to talk
Spicy
on
Chemist asks, have I been censured? No, that's not true at all.
one,
When who's telling that? When who's
some-
spreading that rumor? I got so many people spread so much dirty shit around the convention time. Someone asked me, has the Washington GOP paid you, Adam, for your work? I was like, no, I've never been paid, and I've donated $3,000 in this cycle. Where are you hearing that from?
Can we?
But anyway.
Some people in the chat are raising the concept of closed primaries. Okay, and I want to point out a very important difference between Michigan and other states. Some other states have closed primaries. When they do, that is accompanied with official party registration. So you send something to the state. Florida, Pennsylvania is a big one. You send something to the state saying, I am a Republican, I am a Democrat, or I am neither, right? And there are 3 different categories. And if you don't say you're a Republican, you don't get to vote in the Republican primary, right? So actually one of the metrics that you track is how do those numbers change over time? The reason why Michiganders can't have a closed primary is because Michiganders don't have party registration. Me personally, I'm kind of opposed to party registration. I don't think it's the government's business to know what member of party I am, especially in places where you have very different meanings of what that means. But you can't have a closed primary in Michigan because you don't have party registration in Michigan.
Yeah. And just to give you guys some background on this, because here's Heather Dow says, I missed my Maryland closed primary. I was pushing for closed primaries a long time ago because of the concerns we have with crossover voting. And when we had Republicans in charge in the Snyder years, and we had Ruth Johnson, and we had whoever was before her, I can't think of the name right now.
Terry Lynn Land.
Terry Lynn Land, Candace Miller before that, I think. Mm-hmm. The pushback we got was this. If we vote to go to partisan voter registration, the Democrats will beat us up over this politically because we're changing the system. Therefore, they can beat us up over it. Right or wrong, that's what they're going to say. We're requiring that people identify themselves by party, yada, yada. There's the biggest force in politics is inertia. And politicians don't want to pass something controversial or something that can be made into a controversy, even if it's the right thing. So the fact that people were coming up and saying, this is a good idea, they're like, well, okay, how much money do you have to put behind your good idea? Because I can guarantee you there's going to be money behind the opposing effort. And so that's why the idea was, you know what, just forget it. You know, same reason why we still have daylight savings time. Because at the end of the day, every time someone goes to push it, the farmers start coming out and saying, oh, this is a terrible thing. And why are you doing this? And yada, yada, yada.
I don't mind it. I don't care.
Well, I don't. But the problem is it's not we who decide. The politicians do.
No, I know.
And every time they'll get a couple of hearings on daylight savings stuff, and then it gets dropped. Yeah. Spicy Chemist says Matt Wilk need to close the primary. If not, you are okay with Democrats voting for your nominee? Look, we agree we should have a closed. At least I agree we should have a closed primary. I'm saying this is why it's politically problematic to do it. That's all.
And just legally, you cannot do it right now. The first thing you have to do is allow for party registration. And again, this goes back to a comment we heard at our convention, and I'll share it with everybody. This guy stands up and says, I feel hoodwinked. And I said, you should feel hoodwinked. The question you should ask yourself is, what person told you that you could walk in this room, raise your hand and say point of order and change how the entire party runs? Because that person hoodwinked you. The person who told you that the MIGOP, the Michigan Republican Party, can close its primaries without passing a law has hoodwinked you. Now they can,
right.
And there's good arguments back and forth why they should or shouldn't. I think it'll be fascinating to see how many people register as Republicans versus Democrats in Michigan. I think it'd be fascinating, right? But until you do that, you can't close the primary. So anyone who told you the MRP should just close primaries has hoodwinked you. I'm very sorry that happened to you.
Oh, yeah. But the follow-up comment's even worse.
Yeah.
And we need to only allow delegates to vote until the legislature fixes the law. No.
Yeah. So a couple of things to this. And first, to underscore Matt's point here, and here this person, Lance, says, this is a horrible excuse to continue allowing Democrats to vote and run as Republicans. We're not excusing it, Lance. We're saying, here's why, when they were in power, Republicans did not change the law to have partisan voter registration. The problem is, yes, a party can have its own process for deciding who its nominees are through a primary system if they pay for it. But the way the law is written is, you have a taxpayer-funded primary, it has to be provided for in statute. And that's the statutes that we have right now. We're not excusing it. We're saying that's the way it is. And it's not, and we couldn't change it. I tried to change it. And I'm telling you, I tried to change it. And here's why the politicians said, we're not going to change it. So what do you want me to do about it? I tried. I tried this years ago. What else did we have here?
May 7th, Dwayne. May 7th, 4 p.m.
Yeah, May 7th for signing up to be a precinct delegate. May 7th.
Delegate affidavits.
Yeah.
Don't rush. Give it a month.
Yeah. Spicy Chemist says, we do this for the Attorney General and the Secretary of State already. Well, there's two issues with that. First of all, how well has that worked out for us?
Kristina, the candidate, didn't we?
But secondly, besides that, that's 1-2 statewide races. I do this for 110 state rep seats, plus who knows how many county commission seats and everything else.
What does the law require? Those things are allowed under the law to be done by the party directly through the method that they've used. You need a law change to change how you pick people. You cannot do it by yourself. Wait a minute, let's finish the circle. You can't suspend the Michigan compile laws to pick the person that you want. Just like you can't
suspend the bylaws.
You can't do it.
To handle new business that you don't want to disclose.
Right.
Yep. All right. It's already almost 10 o'clock, and I've got a few other news items I want to get to this week because things have been happening. First off, on the national news side, because I've heard that people are very mad about Pete Hoekstra having voted for something a long time ago called the Patriot Act.
Who didn't vote for the Patriot Act? I'm so tired of that argument. Like, who did it?
The funny thing was, this past week, there's a big fight over the current version of the Patriot Act. Well, there's multiples. There's the USA Freedom Act is what they called it now. But there's also this big one called Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This is something that Congress has been fighting over the past year with people trying to get them to drop this unconstitutional warrantless mass surveillance. And this it was being debated in the Judiciary Committee all the past year. And then last December, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, decided to roll into the National Defense Authorization Act a 4-month extension because they couldn't get it done to revise it. And there's actually now a competing bill put out by the House Intelligence Committee. I forgot the name of it, but it's HR 6611. It was like the FISA Reauthorization Reform Act. It didn't reform anything. But at one point last December, Mike Johnson came up with this retarded Queen of the Hill proposal, which he said, we're going to have members polled on whether they like the Judiciary Committee's good version or the Intelligence Committee's atrocious version. Whichever one gets more votes, that's when we're going to pass. And then that got pulled. So then this past week, on Monday, Congress threatened to go into a secret session, which they haven't gone into in 15 years. I think only 7 times in our nation's history has Congress gone into secret session to have a debate about the spy powers bill, which was very obviously pulled from the Intelligence Committee's bill, is going to reform absolutely nothing whatsoever. And then after some people, including myself, who sent, I don't know, probably about 800,000 emails this past week about this topic, actually got the bill pulled. So there's the story. Speaker hoped to bring the legislation up for a floor vote this past Thursday, and on Wednesday, Speaker Mike Johnson once again punted a controversial spy powers bill as GOP infighting threatens to derail his plans once again. And here's the big story. And again, these are 2 fundamentally incompatible bills. One of them is to continue to extend and expand warrantless mass surveillance, including on Trump, including on people protesting on street corners for abortion clinics and going to school board meetings. And the other one's the bill to allow that and condone it and expand it and extend it even further. And they were hoping to get it done. And here's the story. There's a second punt from Johnson, who first wanted to bring competing bills on the surveillance authority to the floor and have members vote directly on which version they preferred. To scrap the plan after members started publicly complaining that it was his job to make a decision. And I worked for Ron Paul's Campaign for Liberty. You can bet we spent a lot of time this past week sending out emails. Like Monday was, call Mike Johnson and call Steve Scalise, because Scalise is the one we heard was whipping the votes behind the scenes on this bill. And then the next day it was, call your own representative, send the postcards, call your friends. And they finally pulled this bill. And this has now been punted again. The House is out of session until February 28th, so we got a little bit more time. But when they come back, it's going to be budget. Got to pass these budget bills. They have now rolling deadlines for budget bills. And then before you know it, it'll be April again. They're going to pass this again. So for all of you people out there who are mad at me for supporting Pete Hoekstra for state party chair because he voted for a bill 23 years ago for spy powers. Hey,
Right.
How many of you guys called your congressman about this bill?
I mean,
This
it was
in the-
right after 9/11. Who wasn't all for it then? And I mean, not many people had the foresight or forethought or whatever to think that they turn around and use a spy on like us, right? We thought,
Well-
we're going to get the bad guys.
Well, I'm not going to make excuses for Pete Hoekstra because he was chair of the Intelligence Committee and he was pushing that, frankly. I'm just saying that's not what his job is as state chair today, and does not correct the fact that we need someone other than Kristina Karamo in charge, period. But I will say, though, for all the people who are calling me a deep state rhino, I was fighting the Patriot Act when it was actually a live issue. And I'm still fighting this issue. So where are you guys?
I know.
Where are these come-latelys on the spy power stuff? They suddenly care about the Patriot Act and mass surveillance. Yeah, right. Just saying, folks. So, yeah, Patty.
Mark in 2001,
says,
right?
Yeah, used by Obama to spy on candidate Trump, General Flynn, and others, and was supported by Hoekstra. Really? Was Hoekstra in office when Trump was running for president, Mark? Because I'm pretty sure those were,
In 2016.
I think the events are fairly distant in time. Just a little bit distant in time. Anyway, what else do we got here? Gray Wolf on Rumble, going back to our talking about the primary, says, if you were to register as an independent, would you be excluded from voting in a primary? Well,
Yes.
Gray Wolf, in that hypothetical, depends on the state.
Yeah, it depends
There
on
are
the
some states where your closed primaries allow independents to vote in either party's primaries, and there's some states that allow them to vote in neither.
Right.
So it depends what the bill would be passed.
Right. It is a great guys. Yeah, I don't know if you remember meeting Scott Pressler. He's been big going across the country doing these registration pushes, and their metric is registered Republicans versus registered Democrats. They went up 500. We went up 5,000. You know, it's a great metric to do. It's certainly worth thinking. My only point is the Michigan Republican Party can't snap their fingers and make it happen.
Yep. I just saw there's a chat from Jamie Thompson asking me to look at this link.
Yeah, I don't know if
not
the
making
link doesn't look, it looks like just plain text. It's the information from Brownstown Township voting. but she
Okay.
does
Yeah,
have a
I'm not being
question.
able to copy it very easily myself, so I don't know how to bring it up.
Yeah, but she does
But
have a
what is it?
question. Yeah. Can you, and this is not new, but maybe for people who haven't voted in a presidential primary before, we could explain why candidates who have dropped out are still going to be on the ballot when you go vote on the 27th or now in early voting.
Because the deadline to print ballots was a while ago. At some point, you guys send them to the
Was it
print
as
shop,
simple as
basically.
that? That's what I thought, but I just wanted to confirm. Yeah.
Yeah, because the ballots were already printed. There is a deadline there's a deadline if you run for office, there's a deadline you can withdraw from the ballot, and there's some point after which you can't.
Right.
And that's just the way that goes.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just didn't know if there was anything else besides a printing deadline.
Yep. Iowan Froman says, I'm confused. Who actually picks our rep nominee? Delegates at the national convention or voters in the 50 states? The national delegates at convention pick the nominee
For president.
Yes, for president. They are oftentimes bound by the results of contests within their states. For example, in 2012, we had a number of national delegates who were bound by the results of their election to vote for Mitt Romney. And there was delegates in other parts of the state that were not bound because the winner in their district, their congressional district, was Rick Santorum. And by the time the national convention occurred, Santorum had dropped out of the race. So in some districts, they were free to vote for Ron Paul if they wanted. In some districts, they were not. But the rules vary from state to state, and they are not consistent from year to year. That's for sure. But there is, let's see if we can find it here. There is a website that, yeah, here we go. This is thegreenpapers.com. If you go there, they have, let me make this a little more legible here. Blogging before it was cool. This website is like ancient. It still looks ancient, but they have like, this is what, when I worked for the Ron Paul campaign in 2008, what our reference guide was this website, because every state has all of these very bizarre rules. So like, for example, like here's Super Tuesday. Let's see what it says about, let's pick the Maine Republican primary. Here's who the candidates are on the main ballot. Here's how they apportion their delegate results.
His middle name is Dion.
Huh?
DeSantis, his middle name is Dion.
Dion, apparently so. I did not know that.
All
There
right.
you go. And Nimarata Rhonda Haley.
Nimrod. That's what I call her.
Yeah.
Nimrata.
But anyway, they have this for like all 50 states, Democrat and Republican. It's crazy. Hey, KLS&C says, smash that like button. Thank you. Yes, please do. I always forget to say those things. But thank you. Yes. Anyway, if you're curious about how other states do their nominations, thegreenpapers.com is the go-to source. And it's the head for the territories too. So if you want to know how American Samoa chooses their delegates, that's even here too. So there you go. That's where to go for the national rules. All right. What else do we have to talk about? Josh Shriver. Let's talk about this. So Josh Shriver. Remember last week we had someone in the chat that was saying, what do you think about Josh Shriver and his replacement theory?
Oh, left of center, Michigan.
Yeah, left of center, Michigan. To which, I could probably say a few things about the great replacement theory. For example, here's how it was articulated by Democrat campaign consultants. Patrick Reddy says, the 1965 Immigration Reform Act, promoted by President Kennedy, drafted by Attorney General Robert Kennedy, and pushed to the Senate by Ted Kennedy, has resulted in a wave of immigration from the third world that should shift the nation in a more liberal direction within a generation. It will go down as the Kennedy family's greatest gift to the Democrat Party, according to a Democrat consultant. Then there was Democrats Roy Teixeira and John Judas, who had an article you can find everywhere called The Emerging Democratic Majority, that argued that demographic changes, mostly by immigration, were putting Democrats on a glide path to an insuperable majority. After Obama's reelection in 2012, they actually wrote a follow-up article. And it was like 10 years down the road. They pointed out that Obama lost the white vote outright, but won with the majority of the minority vote, Hispanic vote, Asian American vote. This is Democrats talking about this stuff, folks, not Josh Shriver. So at the time, I didn't know it was going to be a big deal or anything, but apparently it had been, because the Democrats fired Josh Shriver's staff, dismissed him from whatever committee assignments he had. I thought he had none when he got elected, but apparently at some point they finally gave him one. And they had a vote to basically to badmouth him. And here is the roll call on HR 191. Let me just pull this up here. I want to get the text of the resolution here. Resolution 191, which says, quote, a resolution to denounce the espousal of racist, xenophobic, white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and Islamophobic language by members of this chamber. Well, gee, that seems to imply that there is a problem with them doing these things. Whereas the Michigan House of Representatives is known as the People's House, when we want to pretend that it's the People's House. It is the legislative chamber that is closest to the people of the state, closest out of two, closer. And the members elected to and serving therein are the voice of those people. except those that didn't vote for them. Whereas the state of Michigan is a beautifully diverse state, Michigan and its people are so vibrant because of, not in spite of, the different identities, backgrounds, and cultures of the people who call our state home. Did someone ever say they weren't? And whereas the proposal and espousal of racist, xenophobic, white supremacist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic language, regardless of the source or form, is a vile stain on our society. Such language and images often draw on stereotypes and conspiracy theories and do not reflect the reality of the world or its people. Such discourses have been used to incite and justify deadly violence against individuals and communities of color. Well, apparently these Democrat campaign consultants have spread a vile theory. But whereas we rightly hold elected officials to a higher standard in matters of discourse, the language of leadership carries a greater weight with the general public than that coming from peers. When a person in a position of authority spreads words and images designed to foment hate and division. Okay, so pointing out that our border policy benefits Democrats politically is fomenting hate and division? I don't see that. So be it resolved by the House of Representatives that we denounce the espousal of racist, xenophobic, white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and Islamophobic language, theories, and images as they do not belong in societal discourse and serve only to stoke fear, hatred, and division, and is antithetical to the functioning of the people's house. And be it further resolved that such language, theories, and images being posted, reposted, or otherwise shared by members of the Michigan House of Representatives represents a failure of decorum, the dereliction of each member's duty as both the voice of a diverse group of people and as the keeper of the public trust. And be it resolved that copies of this resolution be transmitted to every member of the House of Representatives, as if they didn't know about this. And so a couple of points here. I mean, the obvious point is I hope when the Republicans get back into power, every single one of the Democrats, except for the freshmen, are given no staff, no committee assignments, nothing, because of the way they've treated the Republicans so arbitrarily and capriciously. But I'm not holding my breath because here's the vote.
Yeah.
Here's the vote. All but 5 Republicans. And I don't know how, well, let's see. Let me see if there is a roll call on this resolution. I'm sure there was. Yeas 98, nays 5, excused 0, not voting 5. So you have these 5 members, Kara, Frisky, DeSanta, Maddock, and Shriver, who voted no. And you have 5 others who were too chicken to say, Fox, Johnson, Kuhn, McKinney, and Smith. And all the rest of them voted yes. And I can already hear the explanations and the excuses. I'm in a tough seat. It's not a big deal. It didn't single out Josh Shriver in the language, even though everybody knows what it was about. This is how the Democrats win in the long run. Is they go ahead, Matt.
I mean, and I don't know how you get past the Democrat floor leader. The first vote on the screen is Representative Ayash. And Ayash was called by a leading Jewish organization, basically called out for racist rhetoric. And there are multiple members on the Senate and in the House that are Jewish. And just to be clear, you can see the flag in the picture, the Israeli flag in the forefront of the picture. So it's okay for you to basically take everything away from Josh based on which it wasn't even his. He didn't make a comment. He retweeted something that Jack Posobiec tweeted. But it's not okay. Remember, there was a resolution to condemn the terrorist attack on October 7th, and Joe tabled it through the end of the year so it would die instead of bringing it to the floor. It couldn't get even a vote on is killing 1,200 people okay, and somehow the double standard is just frightening. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I would even say I don't think, having a flag of any foreign country is appropriate for a government official in their line of duty. I think if you're a elected official, your responsibility is to your constituents, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You want to support any foreign country. I don't care if it's Israel or Yemen or China or Iran. You want to give them your money? Give them your money. I can't tell who that is. It looks from the back of his head, looks like Greg Markkinen, I guess. Mark Kernel says Angela Regas voted for her. Yes, she did. Well, let's see. Roll call number 10.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Expected in House
Your
Journal
son would.
14. I mean, I'm sure she did because that's her on the board there.
Yep.
But let's just look this up. I'm going to just double check. 191. Yep. Okay. Here's the roll call. I'll bring this over here.
I mean, this is
There it
just the
is.
most tired thing ever. Call the Republican a racist. And anyone who talked to Josh, I mean, no one who talks to him and knows him can call him a racist. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a really good man, very kind, very generous. Kind.
Oh, yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Josh Shriver is someone who is like someone who wouldn't hurt a fly. He's such a kind person. I think he worked with special needs kids in his life before he became a member. Oh, sorry, Patty. Sorry about that. I had switched over so we could look at the photo in the front there. But yeah, it's the bottom line is Democrats will always stick together, and Republicans will never hesitate to throw each other under the bus. It's sad, and look. Someone asked, George Hiller says, Carr has to explain what he's getting for his KK support. Well, I'll tell you what, George, those members who voted who voted against censuring Josh Shriver, I don't care if they support Kristina or not. They did the right thing. Steve Carra, Jim DeSanta, Neil Frisky, Matt Maddock, Josh Shriver. I don't care what their opinion is on Kristina Karamo. They did the right thing on this, and the others did not. Period. That's just the way that is. Yeah, Jessica says, just look at George Santos. Yep, exactly. All right, so that's that. I don't know what else to say about that other than feel free to give your lawmakers an earful if they have excuses about that. Yeah, Jessica says, and now I have a Democrat won that seat.
Yep.
Yeah, they threw it out.
We had a 5-seat majority, right? And we're just handing it over to them. McCarthy retires, whatever. They get this guy out. Well, I'm sure he wasn't.
Yeah, it's
kind
amazing.
Kind of a weirdo, but I mean.
Yeah.
And there was a vote in Congress.
Stories in the news, real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. We got I don't know if you saw this, folks, but there's apparently something called an Office of Global Michigan. So they're looking for refugee support.
Okay.
So yeah, if you know any residents that want to provide support to newly arrived refugees, then have at it.
No, they already gave out the signs. You could, if you're having watches, having to be a refugee from another country, especially one that you have no financial support. The sign starts at the top, says "Love is love," right? And science is real and all that. That means that the person whose house is in front of you can go in the house and just sleep in there, and they'll take you in.
Right, or in this house, we believe that
exactly.
that sign, that black sign with a
Yeah. Random stuff in Michigan says, how about Frisky booing Trump last night when he introduced Hoekstra? Well, I have a feeling that Frisky is not going to get that close to Trump ever again. But again, I mean, that to me, you have to separate different issues. On this issue, Frisky did the right thing and others did the wrong thing. If he wants to boo Hoekstra, then, well, whatever. So be it. He's not my rep, so it is what it is. What else do we have here? Okay, I've got. So I don't want to get into Ukraine stuff right now. Although a very, very, very decisive thing happened this past week, and the stronghold got taken by Russia today. But that's a topic for another night. I saw Patty shake her head. No, let's not talk about that.
Jay asked about court. Kent County case is on Tuesday, and the trust lawsuit case is on Thursday in Ingham County.
All right. Last topic for this week, and this is, well, a little bit gross. Actually, very, very, very gross. But just to,
should I just leave the stream now? Is it that what you tweeted earlier?
Yeah.
About the lawsuit.
This is just. I mean,
Dan doesn't know what's coming.
I don't know. So
okay. So I make this point for a certain reason, which is that when you're going out knocking on doors and talking to voters, they're going to have difficulty believing what you are saying is actually happening in our state. actually believing what Democrats are doing in Lansing. And how insane our society has become. Well, this is one of those stories which, just to understand how insane the world around us is, you need to know about it. So this is a story that was published a little over a week ago.
I've heard
Apparently, this person put
This
I'm not good with pronouns, but this person who was born a man took the testicles that were once in his body and put it in the fridge of his I guess maybe her boyfriend at the time, ex-boyfriend at the time, and there was apparently a petition to get them back, but they were thrown out because they had rotted. And so they were suing for $6,500 for damages because the surgically extracted testicles were in a mason jar kept in the fridge next to the eggs. And the other party filed a counterclaim seeking damages because he said he'd been humiliated by the coverage of the case by worldwide news outlets. Whoops. So the judge denied both claims. A decision, he said, can't be appealed. The judge pointed out that the transgender person had an opportunity to get her testicles back when an Oakland County Sheriff's deputy accompanied her to the home. Imagine my shock that this person has had some kind of issues that had to get the police involved. And yeah, she failed to retrieve the testicles from the refrigerator, and it was too late. And so the other person says, they were rotting my fridge. It was disgusting. I've got food in there I wanted to eat. Didn't keep them in a biohazard container like she was supposed to. Since the testicles had been discarded, the judge was unable to grant the request because they'd already been thrown away. So therefore, unfortunately, I can't assign an amount of financial harm that was caused to you by having your testicles thrown in the trash. Apparently, they were keeping them in case maybe she'd want them reinserted one day, but because they actually just kind of rotted, they had to be thrown away. And so the Dwayne says, this is nuts. Left of center asks, do I not have the Rumble chat open? It's open, left of center. I'm reading a story. I'm reading chats. Folks on Rumble, I'm sorry. Rumble does not work as well with my streaming software as these other platforms do, and I have to like really look up in a way to see what's going on Rumble chat. Now I'm seeing here.
I mean, really, I think the moral of the story is if you don't want to lose your balls, just don't cut them out.
Yeah. Okay. So where is?
Well, I think a lot of guys, they're still attached and they've lost them.
Left of center on Rumble says he posted a meme that showed a world with more brown and black people in it and fewer white people in it. The world has more black and brown people than white people in it. So why would that be strange? This is a bad thing according to Josh. Says who? I don't see anything that he said that goes to.
Does anyone want to talk about Mary Margaret Patterson? There's been several questions in the chat on why she dropped out.
I don't know anything about it. No. So yeah. She was going to run for county executive or something, but she's dropped out apparently.
She dropped out. Yeah, she wasn't raising enough money and just didn't have the drive. I mean, it's hard work to raise money, guys. Like if you're gonna be a candidate and get out there, it is grueling work. And she just wasn't into doing all that work, and it was harder than she thought, and wanted to spend time with her family, and she's got a great family and that, and so we wish her the best. And who's replacing her on the ballot, we don't know yet.
Dan Lawless, probably, I guess.
No, I'm not running for county executive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough. No, Adam, read my whole. No, it's not your show, left of center. I'm sorry. I've seen the tweet.
Patterson, right? The daughter of L. Brooks Patterson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oakland County powerhouse Republican for how many decades?
3, 2.5.
And she can't raise money.
That's
it's just the state of the party. Nothing against her.
But it's also the cycle. She didn't really like. I feel like she dropped out like too soon for a money issue because people aren't donating for 24 races in 23. So I think she was a little premature in getting out, but that's okay. It's
Yeah,
not for everyone, man. It's a tough rule.
Yeah, Mindy says she started campaigning too soon. I beg to differ. That is not a thing. There's no such thing as too soon to start campaigning. The sooner you start campaigning, the better, in my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say, just because your parents have an office does not mean you're going to automatically have access to the same fundraising networks that they do.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it's a matter of expectations. People have been saying for a long time, Oakland County is trending Democrat, so that makes it harder to get people to donate to your campaign. Period.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money. I had interviewed someone once that wanted to run for, I want to say Oakland County Sheriff, and I was like, well, here's the thing, man. It's a very, very huge amount of turf, like multiple congressional seats worth. It's a bigger voter base than a congressman's seat is, and it's like a fraction of the interest level. So unless you're famous, it's a very, very, very difficult road to cut. It's a very, very difficult journey. So, but anyway, it is what it is. And nobody has any obligation to run for office. So if she decided something she wasn't going to be able to do, well, that's her decision. I can't.
Obviously, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just
Anyway.
state where we're at. Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of a low note to end on, I suppose. But this has overall been a very good week.
I'm glad to be back on the show and bring everybody down.
Certainly for Michigan Patriot.
Adam, are you going to have streams on Tuesday or Thursday for these court cases?
We'll see. It did not go well the last time I tried to live stream a court case.
Yeah, didn't you almost get in trouble? What did they do to you?
No, they didn't do anything to me.
But what did they threaten to do? Something?
They threatened to charge me with contempt of court, which is like not a charge. It's not a charge. It's an instantaneous conviction. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take that down. Like, we might do an analysis of it after the event on Tuesday. But no promises. I'll get a stream going as soon as I can. So possibly Tuesday. That is the Kent County case, I believe. Is that right? Tuesday
is Kent County. That is the Peter Karamo. And then Thursday is the Ingham County case, which is the Karamo Hartman versus the Trust and Comerica Bank. Both should be
there you go. There's hearings on Tuesday and Thursday. Chances are we'll be streaming, even though I really need to do less of this and more of, the more traditional legislative activism I usually do, because that's kind of the thing that pays the bills more than making controversial fights with crazy people in the party. But oh well, is what it is. So.
Tuesday night there's a Scott McMahon event in Northville.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to post that on the screen. So if you don't know, this event looks awesome. I want to have one in my community too, although this is not too far from it. On Tuesday, February 20th, please join Western Wayne County Conservatives and protect our republic for the other side of the story. 7 o'clock to 8 p.m., Northville Community Center, 303 Main Street, Northville. Scott McMahon, biggertruthmedia.com. We've had him on the show. We've featured his journalism multiple times and talking about the malicious destruction of the Republican Party from within. There's a plan. It is an agenda. It is dangerous. This is a free event. Bring a friend. Judge for yourself on what is being presented. So there you go. And that, of course, is on his Twitter account, X, at Bigger Truth. So there you go. All right, guys. That's going to do it for tonight for us. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to my panel, as always. And we will see. Likely there will be a show Tuesday and Thursday, but no promises. So until next time, thanks for all you guys do for liberty. Peace out.
Get out and vote.